She began her career in early television and then found success on the Broadway stage, but it was her film work that we all still know her for today. From two classic films, North by Northwest and On the Waterfront, all the way up to Superman Returns, she continues to work today at a vibrant 87 years old. Hello, I'm Ernie Manouse. Coming up on Interviews, our conversation with Academy Award-winning actress Eva Marie Saint. In your opinion, what makes a classic film a classic?
I think a film has to be about the human condition and between people, so that there's a story there that everyone can relate to and they remember it forever. One of my favorite films is Brief Encounter. Mm-hmm. You familiar with that? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a wonderful English film with Celia Johnson about two people in a marriage, and it's just brilliant. You must see it. Yeah. And that's my favorite film because it's about people. It's not about effects for me. It's not about blue screen, but that's because I come from what TCM shows, the wonderful films, the older films.
But are there challenges now that face directors that are different? Because I mean, you have this connection with Avatar coming up.
Yeah.
Even if you have all of the special effects and all the technology we have today, I guess if the story isn't rooted in the true human experience, it doesn't matter about all the rest of it.
You know, how do you, I mean, you might relate to it while you're seeing it, but then you might forget about it until the next big movie came with all the effects. Yeah, that's voiceover I'm doing. I've always wanted to do voiceover for Pixar or somebody. I want to play a character in one of those, like Up. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that story.
I look back at your filmography and I look at your career, and people always talk about all of the classic films you've made and all the important work you've done. And you don't have a massive group of films, which tells me you were very selective and knew what you were looking for. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. You're right on the nose. We have a family. When we started having children, which we both wanted, I was very selective. And I remember having an agent at the time I was up to do something, maybe it was North by Northwest, and then something else was coming up. And I said, I can't do that. It was in Europe, and I just had a baby. And, well, he said, Eva Marie, you're not going to be a superstar. I said, I guess I don't want to be a superstar. I just want to work and have a family. And having a family was really number one. Yeah. But I've been very fortunate to be able to have that beautiful family and grandchildren and have that life now, which is wonderful. And my husband and I both feel the same way. He's a director. But I made choices along the way, and I was somehow able to make good choices and do some good. No, I haven't done 30 films. What, maybe 21? You would know better than I don't know. But that's because I was very careful in what I wanted to do.
What is it you looked for then in a script? Because so often what ends up being on the screen isn't always what you read in your hand. So what was it that you looked for that told you this was something you should spend your time doing?
Again, it goes back to relationships, because in most everyone it was a man-woman relationship. I look for the director to trust, the leading man, and those in that order. I think the script, the director, and the leading man. And if it all kind of comes together, I've had some incredible leading men and some wonderful directors.
As I said, incredible directors too.
Yes.
Take me all the way back though. How did it all begin for you?
Back to where?
Back to the first moment you realized you could be other people and people would believe you.
What an interesting question. That's why you're here. I was in college, Bowling Green State University, and I was studying to be a teacher. My mother had been a teacher, and I wanted to be a third grade teacher, those little 8-year-olds. And I was studying, I was doing some practice teaching, actually. That's what I wanted to do. And I was a Delta Gamma. I am a Delta Gamma. And I lived in the Delta Gamma house, and I had a house mother and a house father. Betty Smith was the house mother, and she was married to Dr. Eldon T. Smith. And so he was a speech and drama professor. And he did a play and was doing a play, directing, and someone dared me to try out for it. It was called Personal Appearance. It was a comedy. And I played a siren, a sexy Hollywood star. Well, here's Eva Marie from Albany, New York, playing. To this day, I don't think they knew that I was up on that stage. But somehow something happened, and I thought, I like this feeling of creating. And I went home, and I wrote to my professor, and I said, "Dear Mr. Smith, I'm thinking about changing my major to theater. What do you think?" And you know me. See, I mean, it was wonderful. Everything by chance. I'm in the house. He sees me every day. He sees me with other people. He wrote me a single-space, typewritten, 2-page letter. Sent it to Queens. That's where I was living. My parents were living, and it was in the summer. And that letter I keep on my desk all these years later, because Dr. Smith explained to me what it would be to be a teacher, and it was a wonderful profession. He was a teacher. But he saw me in the play. He knew me. He liked my voice. He'd met my parents. They'd come out for something. And he felt that I was secure enough to take the rejection, which is a big part of our profession. Mm-hmm. And I read the letter, and I was so fascinated and interested the fact that he gave me the two sides, teaching and acting. And I felt, reading the letter, he thought I could do it. So I read the letter, and then I had these misgivings. I was tormented about which to do. And then I thought, I would really like to try. Now, this was a long time ago, in 1944. Right. You weren't even born. And I said to my parents, now, I say the year because my dad was a hard-working father, husband, father, 6 days out of 7, worked for B.F. Goodrich Tire and Rubber Company. My mother had been a teacher, so she knew what it was to work. So I went to them and I said, I have to ask you. I think I want to change my major. And Dr. Smith, and they had met him, thinks maybe I should try and go to New York. How would you feel about that? Oh, it's such an emotional moment. So my dad took my hand, and my dad said, honey, whatever you want to do, just do your best.
Wow.
And if my father had said, honey, my God, what are we talking about? Nobody in our family has been an artist. We've been teachers, business, etc. And that's what, but to say, go ahead.
Yeah.
Just do your best. So I wouldn't be sitting here if he had said, and my mom, they were in it together, if he had said something otherwise.
Why do you think he said that? I mean, if you especially think of the time. And a young woman and the world in front of her, and to tell her that, amazing insight.
And all my friends in college were getting married.
Yeah.
And by the time they graduated, they were married. I don't know, but there was a little caveat. He said, we had enough money for the family. It was, we think about it, soon the Depression. We'd gone through the Depression, and he did say, promise you. I had a sister. Promise you and Adelaide. Promise I'll send you to college. I don't want you to work in the summer. I want you to work hard at school and then relax and have. But I want you to work at least 2 years after you graduate, so that when you go out in that world and see what it's like to work, you'll be more appreciative of your husbands to be. Now that was interesting back then to even say that. Well, I've never stopped working. I mean, here I am. So yeah, Dad, I kept the promise.
You listened.
Right, I listened. But I to this day, I don't know why. I have no one has ever asked me the question, why did my father and mother say that?
Yeah. How has it changed you as a parent?
As a parent,
Yeah.
how has it changed me as a parent? I don't know. I mean, I've worked, and when I've been overseas, say, my husband directing would be there for the children. We had a wonderful woman for 20 years. And then when he would work, I would be there with Beulah, and he would be. So we always worked it out that one of us was there.
But the way your father put trust and faith in you, does that...
Trust and faith.
Yeah, does that...
I bet that meant a lot at the time. Of course it did. I can't even talk about it.
Yeah.
But yes, it made me strong. Now, I had in high school, I was very shy. My sister wasn't. She led the orchestra. I was in the orchestra. I played violin. She led the band, and I was a drum majorette. I was a little jealous of my sister, but that's another story.
Yeah.
We became close. I'll come back years later. But I'm sure I was jealous. She had 7 boyfriends. I had 1. I don't know how she handled it. She had bright red hair. So in that retrospect, I was always wanting to do something in front of an audience, I guess. I was in the chorus, but never alone. I never felt, oh, I want to be there. I want to leave the orchestra. No, my sister did that. I want to do that. I just wanted to be part of a group creating something, whether it's music, modern dance, basketball, chorus. And I guess I just enjoyed all of that.
Yeah.
Till the time I got on the stage by myself, was the leading lady, and felt, this is a good feeling.
Yeah.
I love playing this character because I'm nothing like it. It was a sexy Hollywood lady. Now I'm that, right?
Yeah. You grew into the character.
I grew into
There is one part that fascinates me about your story, and it's just like this moment of time that I think is so amazing, is when you are a working actress in New York making the rounds. And I've heard you talk about it, and it was so different than it is today. And you were out there with photos and going to meet people and actually very active in making your career take off.
I have a little book, and I still have one from years back, little black book, and it's made up of all the days, the time for the audition, the time for the callback, the time to audition for a commercial, the time to audition for a radio show, which was so hard to get. There were about 10 people doing all those soap operas.
Yeah.
And I finally got it after a year. And you know what my part was? Good morning. This is your long-distance operator. Number, please.
Worked a year for that, huh?
A year, but it paid so much. And the television shows, so it led to one thing led to another. My first job was applauding a variety show. Yeah. I called my parents and said, oh, well, I'm off camera, you won't see me, but I'm applauding. Yeah. Did so well. The next week I was on camera. So then I called them and I said, well, I'm on camera. And I paid, I think I made $10, and my dress was $25 because I bought a new dress, so I was in the hole for $15. But that was New York, making the rounds, 9 to 6 every day, and I was determined to do it myself. That's when I met my husband.
Yeah.
And he met me and so forth. He asked me for coffee, and I said, no, thank you. A month later, he asked me for coffee, and I said, no, thank you. And 2 months later, he said, would you like to have lunch? And I said, I'd love to. And that started. Because I didn't want to sit around. All my friends were sitting around having coffee, talking about the role they lost, or who was in it and what a bad job they did, for hours in all these restaurants. And I was completely on my own, eating my lunch in the drugstore, on the counter, smelling all that sour ice cream, and having my tuna fish sandwich. And when my husband said lunch, and to this day he thinks I know I'm right, but he says we had lunch on 6th Avenue near Radio City where we met in a little restaurant. I said, no, it was on 5th Avenue.
Yeah.
And we had white tablecloths and a little bit of flowers. He says, you're crazy. No, you're crazy. 60 years later.
You're still debating it.
Yeah, once in a while.
When did the Actors Studio come into your world?
Well, When I first got to New York, I worked with Herbert Berghoff, and then I segued over to, that was the American Theater Wing. Then I segued, auditioned for Actor Studio twice, I believe, and got in the second time, and then that changed my life.
Yeah. What was it about being with that group of actors, that group of professionals, that you think changed the way you approached it?
Well, I studied with Lee Strasberg, and he was incredible. I think he was tough, but I adored him. But he was tough in a kind way. Most people took it. I think one person didn't, or maybe there were more. I don't know, but they respected him. And I remember the first scene he gave me to do. I don't remember what the scene was, but I had to be. It was a very emotional scene. And I came from a family, a loving family, but if you wanted to cry, you didn't cry in front of people. You went to your room and cried. And my dad was Quaker, and there was something about, he had such patience, but there was something about emotions, I think. He didn't show that much, but you knew that you were loved and you gave your love. So the scene, I had to cry. And I worried about it, rehearsed it in my one-room apartment, and I got on the, I'm going to say on the set, I got in the room, and I knew all my peers, I knew everybody, and I worked on the scene, and I had to really cry. It was a very sad scene, and I had to cry in front of people. I had to cry in front of my peers, people I knew. And I did, and they didn't laugh at me. They weren't upset, but I felt them crying with me. And it was a very powerful experience.
Yeah. And
somehow, Lee Strasberg knew from meeting me, from knowing me, that that was the scene I should do. And that was the scene that brought me out. That was the scene that gave me confidence. And so he didn't know me, hadn't known me that long, but he could have given me something else or something else. I was serious. He could have given something comedic.
Right.
It was like a therapist. And it was a catharsis. It really was. And I really had that feeling of when they say your audience in the palm of your hand. I didn't know the extent of what that meant, but I felt it, and I gave, and I received, and it was a wonderful feeling. And I think that started me off.
Actors often talk about the relationship with other actors, or feeling safe in a scene, feeling safe with who they're working with or a director. But from listening to what you say, I almost get the feeling it needs to come from within you. It really ultimately doesn't matter who's around you if you have found the place. Is that correct?
You should be a teacher. That's it. I mean, it has to be from in here. And you do work with the other actor, to be inspired by the other actor. I was thinking of Waterfront, because they're showing it tonight, that Marlon was probably the finest actor I ever worked with. And he was from the Actor Studio, too. But we knew our lines, we'd rehearse and so forth. But every time we had to do it again, maybe for lights, or Kazan wanted something else, the director, it was different. The reading was just a little bit different to keep you on your toes and to react to the moment, that moment that he gave you that, so that it would change. You just couldn't learn your lines and that's it. If you work with a fine actor, it just changes because of the way his eyes and the way he would say something. And so it was the feeling that he was saying it for the first time, and that you were having this conversation for the very first time.
Yeah.
And it was alive, and Kazan was right there.
And I heard something about when he would direct, was very quiet on the set, and he would come and in your case, whisper something to you, or just say something to motivate where you went.
It was very quiet on this. It's as quiet as the set is, which is very quiet. It's wonderful. He would say, he didn't give that much direction because you rehearsed it. When he would be filming a scene, and then maybe lighting for the next scene, he would come, and the actors would always be rehearsing the next scene up, next in line. And so you would rehearse a few times, and then he would come on the set, and then he would see it for the first time, make suggestions, etc., and then he would be on the set. And the very first scene in Waterfront was the very first scene I'd ever done in a movie. I'd done many television shows, live and theater, so it was on the top of the tenement. It was the roof of the tenement house. We were in a real tenement house in Hoboken, apartment house. And it was a scene a very sad scene. I give my brother's coat to Terry, and he's lying on the pigeon coop up there on the roof. I'm a young Catholic girl. I don't know much about men. Find him very attractive. Didn't tell Gazan. So I have to give him my coat, hit my brother's coat. It's late at night. It's a man, woman. I'm not used to that. So Kazan is saying, all right, Henry, this is before the scene. Now, just imagine there could be a vicious animal behind every pigeon coop. I want you to be terrified. I want you to be really scared. And while he's telling me this quietly, I'm thinking, you don't have to tell me to be scared. The bubble is, you don't have to be. I am so nervous. It's my first film, and it's my first scene in the film in my life. You don't have to tell me to be. So I'm thinking that, and I don't think I ever told him that, but he was whispering it while everybody's waiting, and that was quite an experience to see so many people on a set. I mean, dozens of people. Television, there were people, but not that many. Yeah. And so I did this scene, and then one scene I had was in my slip, which I guess I'm kind of bashful that way.
Yeah.
And I said I really feel, and that's the love scene when you see them. And he knew I was having problems. He knew my husband, so he just came over and he whispered in this ear, and he whispered, Jeff. That did it. That did it. So I transferred. Not that Marlon wasn't attractive, but I needed something, and that's at that moment he said the right word.
And I know people will go after me if I don't ask, because we're running out of time. We've got to move over to Hitchcock. Oh. Difference in working on that kind of a set in that environment to what you just described.
Yes. Well, Hitchcock didn't really direct the actors in the emotional part of it. But what I loved about Hitchcock, he was so interested in what you were wearing, the dress, the earrings, all the outer things, the shoes, the clothes, the hair, the makeup. That helped me create this spy lady. I mean, I've never been a spy lady.
You haven't?
I still may be, but it was such fun to go from Waterfront to the spy lady. I mean, that was a challenge, but he helped me in that way, creating, and that's so helpful to an actress. So, I mean, that's the exterior, but in this case, that helped me with the interior to create the sexy spy lady.
When you talk about the clothing, I remember a story you told me long ago that had to do with your mother, Hitchcock, and some gloves.
Yes, when I called my mom and said, I am having lunch with Mr. Hitchcock. And
this was before anything was set? This was your first meetings with Hitchcock?
Yeah, I had to have lunch. It wasn't an audition, but with the agent, to have lunch at his house in Bel Air with Alma, his dear, sweet, warm wife. And my mother said, well, and no business. She has never read anything about actors, Hollywood. And she said, I've heard somewhere that he likes beige. I said, oh, well, that's easy. I live in beige or black. And that he likes women with white gloves. Having come from New York, can you believe in those days, wore white gloves? I still have them. Can you imagine? And I had the white glove. So I went and I had the beige dress and the white gloves. I got the part.
Had you not worn the gloves, would we have seen someone else in North by Northwest?
I don't even want to think about it. That's right. But he was very kind and funny and warm, and that was it. I mean, he didn't audition.
And to bring it full circle, you began your career in television, and television is keeping your career alive in a lot of ways by remembering the movies.
TCM, yes, and I love. Well, there's some wonderful films that have been made, and the interesting thing is when you get fan mail, they'll start, "Dear Miss Saint, I'm 24. I'm hope to be a director or this or that, or I'm in film school, or I just love films," and they're younger people. And that's great that they're seeing that TCM is keeping these films alive without commercials.
All right. Well, thank you so much for keeping
You're
our interest in
wonderful.
film. Well,
You have very expressive eyes. You do.
Well, thank you for coming in and joining us.
Thank you.
Eva Marie Saint.
To order a DVD of this or any episode of Interviews, please visit HoustonPBS.org.